So while Robert is in the barn with the horses, he's surrounded by Mikkel and the men, and Robert makes his final stand against what he sees as the destructive system of the military, and he refuses to give in or give up at this point. And he intends for himself and for the horses to be set free. So freedom is his desire. And Mikkel intends to arrest Robert, and he is going to take Robert by force. And Robert answers by saying, "We shall not be taken." So this line is very significant in relation to Robert's view of sort of his state of mind at this point in the narrative. He has gone through so much, and here he is sort of almost coming into his own, asserting himself and taking a stand against the system that has abused him. Unfortunately, it is also what Mikkel sort of misinterprets and misunderstands when Robert says, "We shall not be taken." Mikkel interprets that as Robert having accomplices. So the fact that he said "we" and not "I" suggests that there are other men involved. So Mikkel takes more drastic actions, setting fire to the barn. Robert just meant he and the horses will not be taken. So Robert's way of sort of giving almost human value to an animal, anthropomorphizing them, or turning them or seeing them collectively together as human or as animals with integrity and with the desire and right to freedom as well. So he groups himself along with the horses and wants all of them to be able to go free. And I think the line is also relates to Robert's struggles that he's gone through. This idea of being taken and then his stand saying not being taken. It kind of goes back to the rape scene at the baths as well, where he is taken against his will by that group of men. So here he is taking a direct stand against any more victimization or any kind of passive objectification or dehumanization of himself by the military system. So he's standing up for what he believes in. And the horses are very, they've been symbolic this whole time. And here they are very sort of centered to Robert's character. And this whole time they do represent kind of freedom. He's uncaged them from the train cars, so he's letting them free. I think it's also, we've seen it, horses sort of relate to his gender and sexuality, male sexuality and homosexuality. We saw horses being conveyed in Taffler's character and associated with Harris. And the horse, I think, has a kind of connotation of free sexuality. So an unbridled or an unrestricted sexual expression as well. So I think that's implied in this scene where Robert is finally sort of at peace with himself, or he is more sort of strongly aligned with what he believes in. And he's no longer going to be sort of bullied or victimized by the military that sort of has beaten him down, broken his spirit. So when he says "we shall not be taken," it's a very sort of strong assertion of himself and what he stands for. So when he says "we will not be taken," he's asserting his his fight for individuality against a system that stresses conformity, and he's stressing his own rights, his own autonomy against the system that tries to control you, and then he is asserting his freedoms uh, in a against a system that is all about restraint and control and power. So he's sort of making a strong symbolic gesture in saying, we shall not be taken. However, as a result of this, saying this, he ends up being badly burned as the barn goes up in flames. He is then arrested and viewed by those in the military system as being a traitor. He's treated as a criminal. And there is some sort of divisive interpretations of how how his legacy will be remembered. Some people feel more sympathy towards him, and then others view him as a criminal or a madman, a traitor. So it's a very ambiguous sort of position that he is in when he goes against this whole system of order. And I think we as readers have sympathy for him, even in his madness in shooting the private or in breaking the rules. We can sort of see how he has been forced to this breaking point by being continually victimized, violated, his rights violated. He's been objectified and dehumanized, and this is the result. His breakdown, and his intentions are, it's compassion for the horses, but at the same time, you could see this as a form of madness. But, it seems as if everybody is mad during the war. This is a chaotic time, and what he did is no more insane than, say, what Captain Leather did or what any of the other men did as well. So we have the transcribed interview with Marion Turner. And Marion Turner has been one of Robert's sort of allies and supporters. And she was his nurse at this time, tending to his burns. And she takes pity on him, and she refers to him as a hero. In an earlier passage, earlier in the novel, she calls him un homme unique, unique man, right? So somebody who's special, who has qualities that aren't just the status quo. So Robert is a special human being, and I think his compassion for animals is what sort of makes him so special. And she takes pity on him. She's his nurse, and then she offers, she says, I wanted to help him die, to put him out of his misery, to help him escape this, his burns, his physical pain that he's in. So yeah, he's completely transformed. He's got burns all over his face. And he's no longer, physically recognizable to the man that he once was. So he's been transformed physically, scarred physically, but as we know, scars run psychologically as well. But she offers to help him die, I guess by, giving him medication. But his answer is not yet. So she sees the essence of Robert Ross in those two words when he says, not yet. That's on page 195, Marion Ross's transcription. There in those two words, in a nutshell, you have the essence of Robert Ross and perhaps the essence of what it is to be alive. Not yet has been my motto ever since, and here I am. So those words, not yet, also give us a little bit more insight into, who Robert is. And I think it speaks to his character as somebody who fights for what they believe in, who loves life, and who's going to fight for his life and his rights. And somebody who, is still capable of seeing joy and beauty in the world around him, despite all of the pain and suffering he's gone through. He still sees the world as something, or his life as something beautiful and that he strives for. So it really shows his courage, his endurance, and the fact that he's not somebody who gives up, right? So he's going to keep living regardless. And then he ends up back at St. Aubyn's, the convalescent home. Barbara D'Orsay, so his last, or his girlfriend for a period, she comes in, pays him her one visit, which she has done with every boyfriend that she's had, and she's moved on already, right? So she has this new arm candy, the Colonel Albert Ritterhouse, so another war hero who's on her arm. So it's not Barbara who takes care of him, but it's actually the younger sister, Juliet D'Orsay, who never leaves his side, tries to help him recover, and just keeps him company. So she is the devoted, she stays devoted to him despite, his wounds, and, that he's no longer physically beautiful anymore. He's not handsome, but he is, to her, he's a beautiful person, and she wants to be by his side. And that last image, or that the picture of Robert and Juliet sort of speaks for the fact that he still has found joy even in his last days alive. So the picture of him, he has no eyebrows, his nose is disfigured and bent, and his face is a massive scar tissue. Juliet is looking up at him, speaking, and Robert is looking directly at the camera. He's holding Juliet's hand, and he is smiling. And then inscribed on his gravestone, earth and air and fire and water, Robert R. Ross. So he died in 1922, so that's 4 years after the war ended. So he survived, but his life was cut short from the war, his experience. And that image of him smiling, this is a tragic story, but I think we get actually a very sort of inspiring and even a happy ending in a way, because it remains, in some way he has won, he has overcome the obstacles, and he achieves at least a measure of peace at the end of his life, along with Juliet holding her hand. So it is a somewhat, inspiring story of how, a single man can challenge a cruel, unjust system. And then there are a couple of epilogues, or paragraph or pages that also tie together the framing story, where we have a couple of other photographs. In one of them is a picture of Robert, and he's holding a tiny object, and it's the fragile little skull of a small animal, a rabbit or badger. And the other picture is of Robert and Rowena with their horse Meg, and on the back of the photograph says, "Look, you can see our breath, and you can." So the framing story, where we have our historian, or the person who is researching Robert Ross, these are the final sort of moments of the text, where our last image of Robert is him with Rowena and the horse. So it's a sort of how we want to remember Robert, not in his pain and suffering, but in that moment of his innocence, his youth, when everything he loved was still there with him. So it's a sort of reminder of all that's been lost